Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the February 11th, 2025 meeting of the Milford Zoning Board of Appeals. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Montano and Mr. Wolf are excused. Mr. Dubois?
Here.
Mr. Enick?
Here.
Ms. Bronte?
Here.
Ms. Hirsch?
Here.
Mr. King?
Here.
Mr. Soto?
Here.
That's everybody.
Okay, and voting tonight in place of Mr. Wolf and Mr. Montano will be Ms. Hirsch and Mr. Dubois. Okay, a couple of changes to tonight's agenda. If you are here for 114 Point Lookout, 7 Point Lookout, and 171 3rd Avenue, they've all been postponed to next month. Tonight we will hear Forest Road and East Broadway. Okay, starting with item number 1, Ms. Hirsch.
289 Forest Road, MBP 89/836/80 R30, Donald DeZenzo Jr. owner, to vary section 3.1.4.1 side yard setback to 13.5 where 20 feet required to build an addition. Survey by J. Pescosolido, my apologies, dated January 11th, 2025.
Hello, my name is Donald Zenzo. I'm trying to connect my garage to my house, and the garage is already existing. I'm only connecting, I think it's a 4-foot gap. My hardship is when I can't take down the garage, is my whole yard is full of rock and ledge, and it's nearly gonna be impossible to remove it, because I took pictures and I sent them in. I don't know if they have them. But the whole yard is just one big rock, and it's going to be a very, very, very hard to, make this any other way.
Okay. And it looks to me that the garage is the only thing now that, once attached, would be in the setback. The addition itself is within the setbacks?
Correct, yes. The garage is existing, and I think it's 13 feet and off the property line.
Okay, great. Any questions for the applicant? Okay. Is there anyone speaking in favor of this application? Is there anyone opposed to this application? Questions for the applicant?
Yes, I have a question. So the garage is pre-existing. You're not expanding the garage, but you're putting an addition on the back of the home to connect the garage. Is that correct?
So I'm just trying to connect the side of the house to the side of the garage and make like a breezeway, like a mudroom breezeway.
So you had said that's all rock. Are you going to be able to put a foundation there or is it on slab?
I've been trying to break through foundations since December 19th, to try to break apart the rock, and it's a task. So getting a foundation is I'm gonna get one, but it's gonna be a lot of work.
So the garage is not moving and you're not expanding the garage. So the
Nope.
distance to the property line is the same.
The only thing that's gonna be the shaded area that's the new addition. So that right there, where the clicker is, that's the only part.
Okay, thank you.
So the addition itself is zoning compliant, but it implicates the garage once it's attached.
Right.
Mr. King.
Through you, Madam Chair. Good evening, Mr. DeCenzo. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Excellent, thank you. Do you have any plans to put a second floor on that garage?
No, I do not.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, this hearing is closed. Mr. Soto.
289 Forest Road. I move to approve the request to vary section 3.1.4.1, side yard setback to 13.5 feet where 20 feet required to build an addition, survey by J. Presco Sodio, 1/11/2025.
Second.
Great, we have a motion to approve and a second. Discussion. I don't see a problem with this. The addition itself is zoning compliant. The garage will not be altered or expanded. The garage was pre-existing. I don't see a problem.
The one thing I'm concerned about, obviously the garage is there. That's, it's not going anywhere. I think now that we're attaching it to the rest of the structure, we're increasing the footprint of the house. I'm thinking that an amendment that there could not be a second floor on the garage might be appropriate. This way there's no expansion that could affect any of his neighbors. That's not already there.
So you're proposing a modification to the approval?
Yes.
Okay, any other thoughts?
I know I didn't say it, but all of my neighbors...
Sir, the hearing's closed, so...
Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't sure.
No, no problem. Stephen, procedurally, how can we would need to vote on the motion at hand, and then we can create a new motion?
The motion needs to be amended to include the condition of no second floor on the garage. Do that first.
Okay. I don't have a problem with that.
I don't have a problem with it either. Want me to amend it?
Yes.
289 Forest Road, I move to approve with the following modifications. The existing garage has to remain one story.
Second.
You want me to read the whole other part of it too?
Yeah, why not?
The request to vary section 3.1.4.1, side yard setback to 13.5 feet where 20 feet required to build an addition. Surveyed by J. Presco Sodalio, 1/11/2025.
Second.
Okay, great. And for a vote, Mr. King,
With the motion?
Mr. Soto,
With the motion.
Ms. Hirsch,
With the motion.
Mr. Dubois,
With the motion.
and I'm with the motion. The motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 2, Ms. Hirsch.
851 East Broadway, MBP 28/582/6, R12.5, Thomas Lynch Esquire for 24 Daniel Street LLC owner, to vary section 3.1.4.1, east side yard setback to 5.17 feet where 10 feet required, section 4.1.4, west rear deck to 5.17 feet where 8 feet permitted, section 6.3.2 to expand non-conforming structure, all to construct a new single-family residence, survey by A. Flanagan dated January 12, 2025.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Just for the record, my name is Thomas Lynch. I'm an attorney with the law firm Lynch, Trimbicki & Boynton. My office is located here in Milford, 63 Cherry Street. And I'm here tonight representing my client, 24 Daniel Street LLC. Its principal, Willie McAllister, who is actually a home contractor, was supposed to meet me here tonight. He may be running a little late, but be that as it may, we're before you tonight with basically a simple request to vary the side yard setback and the projection in the back for the construction of a new house on this property at 851 East Broadway. The property is located in the R75 zone, and what we need here is the side yard setback. The existing house that's on site was constructed in 1920. It's a very narrow lot. It's 34 feet in width. It's got some 186 feet in depth. So it's a non-conforming lot in that zone, but I've represented probably a dozen clients up and down East Broadway over the past 5 years who have had similar requests such as this. By right, the client can build a 19-foot wide house. And if that was the case, it would be she could come in with a plan with a very narrow 19-foot wide house and go back much further than what we're proposing here. The proposal is to vary the side yard setback so that there's 5.17 feet uniformly on either side of the proposed dwelling. The current side yard setbacks are non-conforming. They're 6.3 feet. So I like to use the word de minimis when I'm making reference to comparison of existing conditions and proposed conditions. We're basically some 9 or 10 inches on each side widening the house. So I think it's a reasonable request. The plans are on screen. You can see the main feature of the proposal, and I suspect I have some neighbor friends that I see have shown up tonight that I'm sure you're going to hear from them shortly. I suspect that the concern is the fact that the house has been moved back from the existing non-conforming setback, which we, again, are going to be removing a non-conformity on site. In this zone, the front yard setback requirement is 20 feet. Currently, the house that's there, that was, again, constructed in the 1920s, is some 19 feet setback from East Broadway. So one of the problems in this area, and I know this from, again, frequenting the restaurant at the Greek Spot or going down in the State Park, East Broadway has a horrible traffic problem. If you drive down East Broadway, especially in the summertime, there's cars parked all over both the north and the south side of East Broadway. So by moving the house back, the client is seeking, number one, an increased safety factor, because one of the arguments that we've heard from neighbors in the past when we've brought applications before you is that with the side yard setback requests, all of the houses are right on top of each other. My client chose with this plan to move the house back from East Broadway. It's a very deep lot, so the location of the house itself is zoning compliant. The only thing that she's asking for is the side yard variances and the expansion of a non-conforming structure as it exists now. But by moving the house back, it is creating an area in the front that'll afford a yard. It'll also afford off-street parking, which is something that's very, very lacking in that area. Secondly, by moving the house back, and we'll scroll if Stephen can get to the elevations of the house itself. It's a modern design house. Most of the houses that we've seen constructed along East Broadway, most of the houses that I've represented clients on, are tall, 3-story plus attic structures. This is a lower profile house. It's a modern design. The elevation, it's in the AE zone, so that the first floor elevation is set at 13. But with the 2 levels of living space, there's going to be a total height to the structure itself of 28 feet. That's 7 feet below what our zoning regulations allow. There will be a stairway to an attic, a stairway to a roof deck that's on the easterly side of the property, but the structure itself, the improved building, is going to only be 28 feet. So I submit to you that creates a low profile. It reduces the height from the other houses that are in the area, and by moving the house back from East Broadway, it also creates spacing in the front of the house, which none of the other houses up and down that street have right now. So, again, I'm always one to preempt arguments, and I know we're going to hear some comments shortly, and I'm willing to address those, and I respect the comments from the neighbors, but I'm offering to you the fact that the location of the house as it relates to its proximity to either the high tide line in the back, the AE line in the back, or East Broadway. In this case, it's irrelevant because the location of the house itself is zoning compliant. There's sufficient front yard, we meet the rear yard. The only request that's before you is the side yard, which has been typically granted by this board with the construction of new residences in the area. Again, on the screen, we have the elevations. If Stephen can scroll to the floor plans, it's typical. It's an elevated first floor with the garage and storage underneath. There's an open living area on the first floor, and then on the second floor, there's going to be a master bedroom suite with 2 other bedrooms. One of them has a separate entrance that may be utilized if the plans meet Stephen's approval for an in-law setup, but again, that's not part of what we're presenting to you tonight. We're presenting to you an application merely to allow the variance of the side yard and the projection for the deck and the expansion of a non-conforming structure. So with that said, I'd be happy to entertain any questions that the board may have, but I think it's a reasonable request in light of the other approvals that have been granted up and down East Broadway. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Soter?
Attorney Lynch, got a couple questions for you. The driveway, is that all from the sidewalk on East Broadway to the garage, is that all pavers? It looks like it is on.
Yes, it's going to be pavers, yeah.
Okay, so you're really not getting, you said you were going to gain a front yard, you're really not gaining a front yard.
Well,
you're gaining a driveway.
You're gaining a driveway, but the other portion of it, I assume, is going to be landscape.
So my concern here is you're moving the house back just to get a panoramic view, so you don't have to be looking at the neighbors. Is that correct?
I don't agree with that totally. I say that it's moved back to create a more open area, lessen a safety problem, and at the same token, up and down that stretch, I'm not going to figure angles, but I think that regardless of where this house is located, that each house along that stretch of East Broadway is afforded a wonderful water view of Long Island Sound, and I don't think that this is going to infringe greatly on that.
Well, I mean, I've seen a lot of houses. I've been here, I don't know, maybe since 2012 on this board, but it's the first time I've seen one move that far back.
I don't disagree with you. Yeah. But there's a flip side to the coin. If a house is built on this lot of right, you could have a 19-foot wide house that could go much further back. Either it could be closer to East Broadway, or it could go even further back to a
Well, the problem there is if it goes further back, it becomes, you're right at the border, the deck's just touching the VE zone.
Right.
So if he did go back further, he'd have to
detach a deck or things like that.
and
Right.
do a bunch of other stuff for FEMA.
Yeah, well, the truth of the matter is we're not here for a front yard variance or a rear yard variance. Or a lot coverage variance.
It's a side yard variance, basically.
Any other questions? Is there anyone speaking in favor of this application? Is there anyone opposed to this application? Please come forward and state your name and address for the record and tell us your comments.
Dave McDonald, 849 East Broadway. We're adjacent to that property. We have the common way that goes between the two buildings. Concern is, one, I got a copy of the CAM report. The initial request was not required. I don't understand why not. Maybe that could be explained to me. One. Two, I'd like to know what the setback is from the mean high water mark. I think that wasn't clearly called out to me. So what's the distance from her front steps or back steps to the water? Which I think could be a problem in case of storm. With the tide coming in and the waves, there could be some erosion there. Again, this would be kind of linked to the CAM report. And 3, the only concern, I think we all share this concern, is the view of the harbor. With that being pushed back all the way out to where they have it set right now. It's just not uniform with the whole coastline there. It's been indicated that it's within zoning regulations. I just don't understand that. So that's the only concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, I have an answer for you on that. It's 168 feet from the steps to the mean high water mark.
How many?
168 feet.
Okay.
Thank you. I do appreciate your comments, and I suspect that, you know, we did receive another letter in opposition, and I expect that the other comments here tonight will be similar. I do want to remind the room that we are only here for a side yard variance. Side yard variance and a projection variance and a increasing of the nonconformity. So the placement of the house on the lot, front to back, is not the discussion here tonight. So it is already zoning compliant. Questions about CAM reports can be directed to the appropriate city offices. It's not what we are discussing here tonight. But anyone else who would like to speak in opposition is welcome to the microphone.
Thank you. Thank you. A little bit of a frog in my throat, so I apologize ahead of time. My name is Bill Doolittle. I'm at 847 East Broadway, 2 houses down from the principal property being discussed tonight. I find the conversation about the parking spaces, was there any determination about how many parking spaces will be created by setting the house where it is and putting in the expanded parking area? Is it 4? Is it 10? If we all remember back to when COVID hit, a wonderful thing happened down on East Broadway. The city got permission from the state to go post all these nice placards up saying you had to have a sticker to park along East Broadway. Because the incursion on East Broadway is creating the parking problems up and down the street is not tied to the lack of spaces for the residents to park there. Rather, it's tied more to the fact that people come down and found the secret beaches that they can walk down the alleyways down to the beachway unobstructed. We've had neighbors who have come home to find these beach dwellers sitting on their decks, cooking on their cookers. So, you know, I just would clarify a little bit that the premise that moving the house further out on the beach, the footprint of the house, and I respect the fact that we're here tonight just to talk about that one side variance. But having constructed a house, our house is an adverse lot on record with the state, with the city, because we own approximately 36 feet of the roadway, and we own 13 feet at the high water mark. We're on a crescent of the beach right there. So ourselves, along with the McDonald's and some other houses, have kind of a pie-shaped lot, which is an adverse lot, which our city assessor took that into account, and that helped us out a little bit on our taxes. But that lot that is the principal lot that's being discussed here, what's being ignored is that if you look at our house, we had to build jogs in our house to fit the lot. It was creative engineering by the architect to create it into that space. So you sort of did what you had to do. And I think the biggest issue, you're right, we can't stand here and say that there's any compelling reason why they shouldn't go further out on the beach or not. They're within their rights, obviously, to do that. But this is a beach of people that, amongst the people that are sitting here today, have hundreds of years of multi-generational families that grew up with names on their houses, like Clarissa and like Tazars and a whole raft of other ones. And it was a community. And what we're seeing happen here is, the creation of a house that has an in-law apartment in it, question mark. You've got a stove and you've got other things. You know, is that going to be a rental apartment? Is this going to be another one of the sort of VRBOs that the city and the state have chosen not to police at all? That amasses tons of people that blow into town and have parties every weekend and that are not under control in any way, shape, or form. And I would say, yeah, we're very passionate about it because we've seen other houses built further out on the beach, further down. And if you want to see a wonderful sunrise in Milford, come down to the beach where we live on any clear morning, and it's spectacular. And as people move out on the beach, that is a big issue. Are they within their rights? Probably. Are they within their rights as a good neighbor and a resident of East Broadway in this particular beach? Maybe not. So, we'd say we're not here for that today. We'll take whatever steps, we think are necessary to try to say, rethink this, would you please? You're going to be a neighbor soon, and we'd love to have you be a good neighbor for us. That's it.
Thank you.
Excuse me, sir? You asked the question about how many cars in front of the house?
Yeah.
It's 108 feet to the front of the garage, so 20 feet of parking space, you'd be able to get 2 lines of 5 cars each, so 10 cars in front of the garage plus 2 in the garage. You'd be able to park 12 cars off street.
Thank you. Sounds
Thank
like
you.
we charge about what the train station gets, huh?
Is there anyone else speaking in opposition?
Dave McDonald, 849 East Broadway. One last question. They indicated that they were going to have an in-law apartment. Is that considered two-family? And what does that do to the regulations?
An accessory dwelling unit, Stephen Harris, CEO. An accessory dwelling unit is not considered to be a two-family dwelling.
And why is that?
Because
a
it's,
rental apartment.
because in an, well, that's not on the table tonight, but just for your general knowledge, if I own a house and I live there, I can have an accessory apartment that does not exceed 800 square feet. If I move and go live some other place and I rent out the house, then the accessory apartment has to go away because the owner has to live in the house.
Well, what's to say she's going to stay there?
Sir, please speak into the microphone if you have more comments.
What's to say she's not going to, she's in real estate, she's not going to flip the house. She's flipped them already on the beach.
Well, we can't know that, nor can we presume that that is
Well,
what would
we can
happen.
look forward and
And unfortunately,
precautions in place.
as I stated already, that is not the discussion here tonight.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, if anyone who needs to speak needs to do so into the microphone. And generally, we only allow one public comment per person, so
Just a point of clarity for it, please, okay? Could you tell us then, for folks like us, if this is not the forum for this, what is the platform, what is the forum to be able to bring any of these issues to the proper city authority?
well, if you have questions about what is and is not allowed, you can address that to the zoning office. However, the placement of the house relative to the coastline is zoning compliant at this time.
Yeah.
So I know that it's clear that the room doesn't like that, but it's not in violation.
Gotcha, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in opposition? Okay. Mr. Lynch?
Thank you. So we do have to file a CAM. So Mr. McDonald had raised that issue. This does have to go before the Planning and Zoning Board for CAM approval. And as part of that application process, and Stephen knows because he reviews the CAM applications, we have to have a stormwater mitigation plan, we have to have a drainage report, and quite often pavers are put at the front of the residence to address that, because that creates a situation where drainage can be made. Now, with that said, and recognizing what the comment that Bill Soda made, I know that the client's intention is not to create a parking lot here. So I can represent that before we go to the Planning and Zoning Board for the coastal area management, that I will advise the client to have the plans revised to eliminate pavers other than what is necessary to create a driveway to the garage. Because I know that this was certainly not intended to create a situation where there's going to be a parking lot there, okay? So I can represent that for what it's worth, all right? As to the other comments, again, I reinforce my presentation to you that this is really, a side yard and projection variance request. It's consistent with all the other requests in East Broadway. I acknowledge the fact that this house has been presented to you with it being moved back further than the uniform line of houses, but the client's intent was to, A, create a situation where fire safety is eliminated. It's not created, it certainly wasn't intended to create a situation where her house is being moved back and it's going to create a better view. I don't know how you can have a better view along that stretch. It's the entire stretch is of houses where they have spectacular views, each and every one of them. So I submit that to you. I submit that the placement of the house is not relevant to this application. I also submit to you that we recognize Bill's comment, and that can be addressed. So with that, I conclude. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Any other questions for Attorney Lynch?
Good evening. Joyce Kopp, 862 East Broadway. My question is, why could they not stay within the side variance that they already have? They're asking for more footage on each side. What was the real reason for that? Do we have one, or just because they can do it?
Well, they can't do it. That's why they're here. They're asking for permission. So
Right.
the reason is, as Attorney Lynch presented earlier, he laid out several hardships that he believes this lot faces, primarily being the narrowness of the lot. And that's what he's here asking for tonight. So
I understand that, but we're speaking of hardship right now. And hardship doesn't mean a couple more feet on each side. I don't see any reason for them to have the variance whatsoever. They're already taking space out on the beach, pushing their property all the way out as far as they can, as well as we're already knowing for the fact that, you know, Bill had made a statement that we have a great view. There's other people, I don't live on that side of the street. I live on the opposite side of the street. But that's going to take a lot of people's view away from. So if we're talking about these issues, that doesn't make any sense to me. And I understand that we're not talking about that today, but they shouldn't have the variance on each side. What do they need 2 feet for?
Thank you. Okay, does the board have any further questions? Nope. Okay, then this hearing is closed. Mr. Soto.
851 East Broadway, I move to approve the request to vary section 3.1.4.1 east side yard setback to 5.17 feet where 10 feet required. Section 4.1.4 west rear deck to 5.17 where 8 feet permitted. Section 6.3.2 to expand non-conforming structure, all to construct new single-family residence. Survey by A. Flanagan, 1/12/25.
Second.
Thank you. Thoughts?
Well, they're still given 5 feet on each side. I mean, we've approved, less than this on houses before, and, you know, so I do have a problem with how far it's towards the water, but we have nothing to do about that we can't control. And the driveway really doesn't bother me if it stayed in pavers, so, I mean, Attorney Lynch said they were going to change that, maybe to a single length, single width, and then open it up to a double, two cars or so in front of the garage. So I really don't have a problem with this.
For what it's worth, I also appreciate that it's more modest in height than much of what goes up on that street. Mr. King.
I also want to note too that on the side of the property is a city property. It's a walkway to the water for the rest of the public, which I think is also limiting their lot as well.
On the side in question?
Oh, yeah, I didn't see
Is it? Yeah.
I just noted that because the letter that we received noted that the lot was 40 feet. It's actually 34, but it would be 40 without, if it had that walkway.
Any other thoughts? Okay, we'll move it to a vote. Mr. King,
With the motion.
Mr. Soto,
With the motion.
Ms. Hirsch,
With the motion.
Mr. Dubois.
With the motion.
I'm with the motion. Motion passes. Thank you. All right, thank you everyone for coming out tonight. That concludes our agenda items, or our hearings rather. Do we have any new business or old business? Staff update? Any news? We've got 3 items on for next month. Anything else?
At least 2 more, I think, maybe even 3 more. It might be kind of a heavy agenda.
2 to 3 more coming in March in addition to these 3 that were postponed. Okay. Yep. What, Stephen? Yeah. Folks, if you could please have any conversations out in the hallway, our meeting is not yet concluded. Thank you. Thank you. So we're looking at 3 items next month from this agenda, plus 2 to 3 more coming.
So far.
Okay. All right, well, you get 1 light, 1 heavy. Okay, all right, great. Can we get an approval of the minutes from January?
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and meeting adjourned.